From the gridiron to the diamond, this is more than X's and O's. This is your best Florida sports podcast with CBS 12 News sports director John Evenson, producer extraordinaire Sam Sullivan, and Max Shepman with the lighter side of sports.
And it's time for big number 28.
Ooh,
Can you believe we've done
big
this
28.
28
Let's
times?
get it.
Speaking of numbers, I just noticed, do you not realize that there is a number 6 that exists in the world?
Is that like episodes I've missed?
No,
or-
you were just counting down, and you were like 8,
Oh, yeah.
7,
Nah,
5, 4. You skipped 6. I'm like,
Listen, I went to St. Lucie County Public Schools, so sometimes we forgot the numbers every now and then. But it's good to be back on the pod, everybody.
we missed the. What do they call you in the intro? They call you the lighter
Lighter
side.
side
We
sports.
missed the. We were so heavy.
I do
we
that
were
little
deep and
dolphin.
heavy over the past few weeks, but now the lighter side of sports is back to even us out just a little
Happy
bit.
to be here, everybody. I mean, look
Absolutely.
at this new set. I know you guys probably talked about it last time, but shout out our news op extraordinaire over there, Branson Dillon. So-
Yeah,
For sure.
I said last time if I had known we were going to have this fancy set, I would have gotten a haircut, and it's been 1 week.
And you still
haven't
didn't
gotten a
haircut?
haircut.
Oh, good to know. Good to
I've been
know.
too busy.
There you
I've been
go.
TGLing it. TGLing it. We're going to get into
We'll get to
that,
that
a little
later.
bit later. Yeah.
We are, but first things first, of course, the big topic during this month in particular,
Talking about basketball, right?
talking about basketball. He doesn't like, I don't think you caught this, obviously, last week.
March Mayhem.
He does not like to say the words. He's worried about copyright, so he's been
Yeah.
calling it that.
I'm just
Oh.
letting you
Is-
guys get sued.
Is that the kind of thing where it's like for the Super Bowl, for like the ads, it's like, oh, the welcome to the big game or whatever
I'm
it
not
is?
taking
right,
any
right, yeah,
chances.
that
the big games,
So, yeah.
we'll call it.
I-
The
Okay,
big games.
FCC, we apologize. we're amateurs at this. We don't know what we're
I
doing.
call it Madness in March, and of course,
Okay,
There you
that
go.
works.
Just mix the words up a bit.
yeah,
That'll hold up in court.
Some of the biggest madness, I think, from the entire slate of the first 2 rounds, of course, locally for us in the state of Florida, was the Gators squeaking out against the defending champions.
How
UConn.
often do you listen to basketball on the radio? Because I was on the road. I was on a little bit of a road trip, and I was coming back from Fort Myers, and I listened to that entire Gators game on the radio. And oh my gosh, I'm surprised I didn't wrap my car around a pole, especially towards the end. It was so exciting.
forth.
UConn just gave them a run for their money. The 2-time defending champions did. Did you watch or listen?
I did.
You guys
I
watch like
watched.
normal
I
people,
watched,
right?
yep,
Yeah.
did watch. I was not in Fort Myers or wherever the hell you were.
I was
so
not in the car.
I was in front of a TV.
Yeah.
But it is good. Like, it's good when you're listening to a radio atmosphere and you can still feel the intensity of
Yeah.
a game when you're just in the car by yourself. So
It's got to be a
talent.
good play-by-play guy.
Yeah.
It's
For
got to be
sure.
a good. I think it sounded like Jason Benetti. I think it was, but it was a guy who sounded like Jason Benetti. If it wasn't Jason Benetti, he never said his name. But Walter Clayton Jr., his story just keeps getting cooler and cooler, right? Like, I don't know if you know, he grew up in Florida, wanted to be no schools in Florida gave him a sniff. And then he went to Iona, right?
it's the basketball version of Josh Allen.
You're right.
you
Yeah,
go.
except he wasn't. Yeah, you're right. Except he wasn't. He didn't get drafted by someone who actually wanted him. I guess Iona did. Rick Pitino was there, of course, the iconic head coach. When he went to St. John's, all of a sudden there was a lot of people in his corner recommending to Coach Golden that they bring him here. And he was the sole reason, him and Elijah Martin, that they were able to pull off that game on Sunday against UConn.
Yeah, it was certainly a crazy game. But what's funny is that wasn't really the only one, or I should say the biggest tight game that took place over the weekend. That Colorado State game
Oh, yes.
against
yeah.
Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you hit it.
Can we be honest? I'm just going to throw it out there. I know they never in a million years they were going to call it. That was a travel. That was a travel.
They talked about
It was
it.
a
It's one of
travel.
You
those-
always have to bring up the zebras.
It's
travel,
one of those
dude.
weird
It's a
things.
travel.
Yeah.
It is. It's where it's that gathering step that he took, which is that we all thought it was his first step of 2, but that's his gather, which didn't count as a step. Then, of course, Derek
How many
Queen.
times have we brought it up on this damn show? Some referee is going to screw something up.
Yeah.
But again,
It's not a perfect world
As
with
a guy-
officiating
that-
ever.
never in a million years they-
especially when it's that late in the game and that important.
Yeah. Never in a million years they were ever going to call it. But anyways, continue, Sam.
And then the other one you
But
brought up.
wait, we got to talk because they're the next opponent now for the Gators.
They
right?
are. But
So I kind of feel, before you get to that, like from watching that game, man, like the Gators will not have it easy in this Sweet 16 matchup, will they? I mean, the Terps play really, really good defense. And of course, the Gators are probably one of the best offenses in the nation.
Yeah.
But the turnovers were just killing the Gators. And the Terps are known for not really turning over the ball that much. So maybe we'll have another nail biter. Some official will make a crappy mistake, and we'll either be happy or sad about it.
Well, I know it's very cliche, but, we kind of saw it in the UConn game, as you just said. Like, if Florida doesn't have their A game and,
Yeah.
Maryland is able to take advantage of a couple of those turnovers,
Uh.
you better watch out. I mean, how many times have we seen it where we'll get into this here shortly, but 14 seed takes down a 4 seed because the 4 seed was like, we'll walk through this game, no
Right.
problem, no big deal. So
maybe it's a good
sometimes
thing.
defense wins championships, right?
Yep, maybe it's a good thing the Gators are battle tested, because now it's not gonna be an easy test against a really tough defense next. What were you gonna say, Sam? You're dying to say this next
I'm not
point.
dying. I'm just waiting patiently. But what's crazy is that, of course, last week we talked about how it was just 2 years ago that this FAU team kind of took March Madness by storm.
Salute
to who?
All of
They
those-
did just post that relive 2 years ago.
All
I
of
know,
those players.
gosh, like rubbing it in more like that. It's
Yes.
not reliving it. It's
You
feeling
brought
sad
up
about it.
Elijah Martin with the Gators, who's had 18 points, 58% shooting against UConn, but John L. Davis and Arkansas
Yeah.
stun
Yeah.
St. John's, just completely stun them. They weren't even supposed to make it out of the first round,
Yeah.
let alone beat a 2 seed in St. John's. He scored 13 points. Vlad Golden had a career night.
Vlad.
So remember we said last week, and I was saying, like, these teams, the most experienced players on those 3 teams are those FAU stars
Yep.
that you mentioned, because they had that Final Four run, and it's great to see that they have made huge differences on the aforementioned teams. Elijah Martin just ripping down the rebound off that free throw
yeah.
and slamming it home for the
Yep.
for the spark at the ending there. I mean, it's so. I miss him in Boca Raton. We miss all those guys.
Everybody misses everybody here in Boca Raton.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you.
Okay.
We talk about seeds, the upset of St. John's.
Right.
Does the tournament kind of feel boring to you this year? I know a lot of people have kind of brought it up. There's no Cinderella. The highest seed right now is Arkansas, and I really wouldn't consider them a Cinderella because it's Cal out there.
Yeah, it's John
So
Calipari.
so like. Do you feel like it's a little bit more boring considering that there's not really that sweetheart Cinderella team out there?
I know we have to wrap up this segment, but I have an important point to make here. Do you want to say something about this?
Yeah, I don't think it's boring. I actually think it's more competitive now that you have all of these higher ranked seeds going up against each other. A handful of them conference champions. Of course, you're not going to have that Cinderella team, that's shooting up and stunning games and winning, but I feel like it's more competitive than the past 2 years.
I am worried. I don't know if there's been any other articles written on this. I swear to you, this is just an inkling that I thought when I was driving back from Fort Myers. We're used to seeing these crazy upsets in the first round, especially.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
always some. But so I started to think, oh my gosh, the changing climate of college sports. NIT, the transfer portal,
Which is open as we speak as the tournament's going
are
on.
we
very confusing.
already seeing the effects of that?
Yes.
From these top seeds are pure bona fide
Yes.
top seeds, and we're not seeing those fun teams come out of nowhere and knock off these so-called better teams, because there's just not that there's just no room for that anymore, because the transfer portal, the rich get richer basically, and maybe we're already starting to see the effects of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I know we got to wrap real quick, but yeah, it's definitely like one of the things, because especially like the smaller schools, when you get to the March Madness tournament, you got the 5 seniors on the team. That's how they build their connections of being able to win in the March Madness. Next thing you know, it's 1 year at a small school, and they're like, okay, we're going to Duke, Florida, Maryland. It doesn't even have to be a top school, but like,
Right.
So I
that FAU team we saw 2 years ago may have been
The last
pterodactyl, man. Like, the extinction has hopefully not, but that's a scary thought I had.
It seems that way. But you mentioned FAU sticking with Palm Beach County. Let's talk TGO.
That was a terrible transition. That was supposed to be a segue.
Damn,
That was the
You try
that was
next
a
time.
cheap segue.
It wasn't. Let's talk
TGL's in
about,
Palm Beach County. So is FAU.
that's how he transitioned. I transitioned much better than that. But of course,
You're feeling bad for Sam.
an entertaining,
you're coming in hot.
an entertaining championship, nonetheless. Probably the most entertaining, I would say, since Tiger's debut. That's how I felt. I thought it was.
Yes.
They were extremely fired up. I felt like as a fan watching somebody who grew up an athlete playing sports, of course, never played golf at any level close to that, but you want to be out there. Like, you want to be up close right there with those guys.
Yeah.
That's kind of the feeling that I got from that,
for the championship.
for sure.
Yeah, and it's funny, there weren't as many celebrities at the championship that we'd seen, just like, Celine Dion, Josh Allen, all these crazy.
Jason Aldean, CC Sabathia was out there when we went.
Yeah, who's the One Direction guy? Niall Horan.
I think, come on, man, he was your best friend. You
I
don't know
know.
his damn name?
I got his number in my phone here, but I have it.
That's a
I
fake
have it
one.
labeled as One Direction guy in my phone.
Neil, if you hear that, dude,
Yeah, on at it. Block it.
block it. Make sure that text message turns green, dog.
Yeah. But wow, that aside, I'm saying the reason I said there weren't as many celebrities, it didn't matter in the championship because that crowd. We had gone out and watched. Max came with me once, and it was kind of a weird phenomenon for Max because he had seen it on TV, and it was weird to kind of be. It looks like kind of like you're watching the set of a movie, and you're kind of on the outside just looking at this made-for-TV thing happen. But they have made some tweaks and some changes over. You do have the option of listening to the audio of what they're saying.
In the crowd
on Bluetooth,
now.
yeah. So they've made that
Okay.
change.
All right. Well, that was going to be my one thing. I know. Well, I'll let you finish your thing.
Well, no, I'm just saying that crowd was as hyped as ever, man. The New York people were like just trash talking the Atlanta Drive Golf Club, and there was just there was pure like favorites vocally that were established on those 2 nights. And I just knew Billy Horschel. He is such a competitor. You just see it in his
him
eyes.
to win the Cognizant.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got this pride, and he's from Florida. He's just an everyday guy. He'll just talk to you. He just doesn't care. He walks around and you'll just see Billy Horschel. What are you doing amongst all these regulars? And he'll just be there and he'll, like, talking you up and stuff. And
It was the greatest club throw I've seen since Happy
Oh, man.
Gilmore.
you couldn't ask for a better ending. It was
No.
3-0. Everything that TGL would want happened in that singles, in those singles matches. Hammers were the key. They had they were down 3-0. They had 3 hammers left in their back pocket. For those who don't know, hammers, you throw them. The points are worth double, and you can decline them and get an automatic point. And they used it perfectly. That last hammer was the Billy Horschel long putt, and he nailed it to take a 4-3
feet,
victory.
10-inch putt.
Yeah.
Insane.
I can't even make a 2-footer, so shout out Billy Horschel.
I mean, talk about that looked like a bat flip.
Yeah.
That as we have MLB approaching, that looked exactly like a bat flip, and it gave off that exact same energy of like
Somewhere Jose Batista was smiling.
I just took this one deep. Yeah, that's a Blue Jays fan right there.
Well, and again, like that was everything that TGL was built up to be, right?
Yeah.
High excitement, fans going crazy, the players like, I know it's a TGL, like it's a simulation kind of thing, but the reaction of Billy Horschel in Atlanta, like you could tell it meant something to them.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like, okay, like this is some amateur blah 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 thing. Like everything that TGL wants to be, needs to be, happened on that day, and it was great.
It was a terrific beginning.
And I'm also glad that you now have the ability to listen to the players in the stands because in the previous
a lot of people
episodes-
have asked about that.
Right,
Yeah.
because when you're watching on TV, obviously you can hear the dialogue between players, blah blah blah, stuff like that, and like in the crowd they're playing like some house DJ music or whatever,
Right.
which is okay. Like it's
it's not even great music either.
but right. We'll take that up with
Sometimes.
the TGL DJ.
Yeah.
Great job.
But yeah, you're able to like
To be
hear what these
real, like it's like wedding music.
you're
a lot
able
of
to
the
hear
time.
what these guys are saying and
Yeah.
talking about, and like getting the full grasp of like, okay, like the trash talking, like, yo, dude, like go for a 6-iron here or whatever
You
the
can
hell
have
it
that
is.
now. The option is there.
It brings that much more entertainment to the fans, and that's what TGL is all about.
And before we move on, I have an Atlanta Drive Golf Club Champions T-shirt.
You should have just stole Billy Horschel's
Really?
putter
There.
so we can put it in the back.
Oh, that's true. I could have. I could
that'd
have
be
asked them. I
great.
bet you would have given it to us. There is proof that there are New York Golf Club T-shirts that say Champions somewhere floating
So
around because right after it ended,
Are they going to like South Africa? Is that what? Like,
I have no idea, but they had the Atlanta ones back there for us to have.
because
like,
the whole Super Bowl thing is like the losing team. The
you
T-shirts
see
get sent
like
to,
the silly,
yeah.
the T-shirts are somewhere where people wouldn't even know whether or not it's true or not.
Crazy.
Although the NFL is a worldwide league, so I don't think that they can do that much anymore. Maybe they can get away with it in TGL.
Maybe.
Yeah,
It's possible.
yeah.
Something that I want to feel as entertained as I did watching TGL is the Miami Dolphins. You could trash that
Good
transition,
luck.
but that was a great transition. I
love that. No,
I need
You know
to
what?
see-
If I'm mean to you about a segue, I got to give you props on that one.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well,
That's a
real
9
quick.
out of
okay,
10.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, I was just about to ask you
Yeah.
on a scale of 10, what would you rank his first one that you absolutely threw in the trash can? Like a 2?
That was a 0.5
Yikes!
out of 10.
All right, so
Yeah.
you've made
That was
a
No, I'll give you a 1 because it was geographically
you've made
correct.
an 8-point difference. Then.
Thank you. It's a 1 of 1.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So yeah, Miami Dolphins, of course, free agency. Really haven't been too many moves since the free agency period opened up. The most recent one was in between from when we taped our last episode. Linebacker Willie Gay Jr., the Dolphins signed 1-year deal. Drafted by Kansas City in 2020, 2-time Super Bowl champion. I think it's important that you bring, he's only 27, but a guy like that who already has Super Bowl experience.
Yeah.
Very important for this team. It's going to be interesting, really, as we get closer to the draft, who else they add compared to what they decide to draft and start at a young age. Because a lot of these guys that they're going to be drafting are going to start for this team.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about that a little bit with Dave Furones coming up as well, and you are bang on. That's a 10 out of 10 point because they have to they have
made
to
it, Sam.
they have to tweak their thinking here because they're just in this precarious position with just not having the money that they've had in years past. And I mean, they've got the foundation on the cheap of what they hope will be, the glue and the let's call it cement, the cemented. I don't want to say glue and popsicle sticks because that sounds cheap and flimsy, but they could really solidify this thing with a great draft. Guys who are NFL ready starters. They need starters, man, like young starters. And I'd say the draft is more important. I'd say they're equally as important. Free agency and the draft this year.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it like the two different ways you're going to build your team. Like, you're going to have the superstars around them, and you got to draft use your quarterback on a rookie deal to use that money to get the superstars and all that stuff.
Right.
When you're in Miami's case, obviously you got Tyreek Hill locked up, Jayden Waddle, Tua locked up. Now is the importance of, as you said, drafting the players that are going to be starters
Yep.
on your roster that are going to be cheap, that don't hurt you cap-wise, but can make a big difference right away. And obviously, we hammered this a lot, the backup quarterback with the Dolphins. They signed Zach Wilson and all that. But,
Why do you say his name so down laden like that?
I don't know. He's
Yeah,
just Zach
some
Wilson. What
Zach
up, Zach?
Wilson.
Like, hey, dude. But I think obviously, it just depends on what Miami wants to do. I think a big thing that they have to hammer out in this draft is obviously the safety position. I think that's one of the key positions that I feel like they are gonna have to attack with the draft. Obviously, you still got a couple of safeties out there like Justin Simmons and those guys.
They did address it quite just, again, on the cheap and creatively in free agency. But you're right that you can never have enough young up and coming guys. I think every position right now the Miami Dolphins could legitimately
add depth, quality depth pieces on the cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, the Nick, this guy's last name freaks me out a little bit always. Nick Westbrook Ekine, is it Ekine? Dude, I cannot freaking get that guy.
That's funny that one freaks you out compared to the defensive back that we signed, Ifeatu Melifonwu.
I can I can pronounce that. For some reason that second of his last
Westbrook Ekine,
man, and
great
I should know that
threat.
because I'm
I think he'll be a great number 3 out there.
Yes.
Dude, more than that.
Although your boy River Raycraft. He's gone. Goodbye.
But that's why this guy as a third receiver is way. See, they have to think creatively too, right? So not only did they get him at a pretty good deal, but they need a big guy who can like rip down those freaking Tua passes like in the red zone. But he's also a blocker. Like he can weirdly enough help the run game, which was
you put him in the box. You can even put him in the box.
Good.
Yeah. So he's almost like a tight end. You know what I mean? So it's those type of moves that you could clearly see that they're kind of thinking outside the box and like multi-layered reasons for signing guys. And one of those layers in every one of these cases is economy.
Yeah. Well, and that was like a lot of things. Like the first couple of days in free agency, you saw on Twitter. It's like, oh, Dolphins like waking me up like when September ends when the Dolphins sign somebody or whatever.
Green Day.
But like,
is that Green Day?
Yes, it is. Congratulations.
Yeah.
You are with pop culture.
Yes,
that was
hey,
you know how he always hits us with like 40s pop culture?
Yeah,
I just hit him with the 2000s.
There you go.
Akine.
I'm proud of you.
Akine.
But yeah, that's just
you
one
don't
of
get
the
that joke? It was a dad joke.
That's one of the things. It's just like fans got to understand. Like, the Dolphins have spent the majority of their money on the foundation, what they are, and Chris Greer's just gonna have to be creative, which he is. So I know all NFL fans like we need to go out and sign blah blah blah, like add everybody, Myles Garrett, and then Peyton Manning, bring everybody out, whatever. But I think Chris Greer has done a decent job so far with the free agency, and we'll see how he does with the draft.
For sure, and a lot of those new
in theory
those new additions that we talked about, Westbrook Akine, Zach Wilson, running back Alexander Mattinson. Ashton Davis, that was one of the safeties that they picked up from the Jets.
Ashton Davis?
Ashton D-A.
I'm messing with you now. I'm messing.
So those guys, they had their introductory interviews this week, all via Zoom. We do have some sound from Zach Wilson.
Oh, good, yes.
So we,
I dive into the Zach Wilson decision with Dave Furones too. But yeah, I want to hear what Mr. Wilson has to say.
Yeah, he had an interesting background. Let's take a look.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like, right? Extremely explosive offense, and I think they do a great job. And it starts from Coach McDaniels and goes all the way down. I'd just say the offensive staff as a whole has done a great job. And you've seen how Tua's development has gone too since he's been there. And I think I'm just excited to be with those guys. Currently, obviously, there's nothing wrong with being a journeyman, but I still believe I can be a starter in this league whenever that opportunity comes. And so just trying to put myself in the best situation with the best team and coaches and do the absolute best that I can. And then, hopefully at some point you can get that opportunity to show what you can do. And luckily I've played in a lot of games in the NFL so far. And so it's just the ability to step in and make the offense feel like nothing's changed. From a leadership standpoint, just command of the huddle, getting guys the information they need on each and every play and kind of just that, not skipping a beat, kind of mentality going in there that everyone feels comfortable that they're able to completely do exactly what they've been doing. Yeah, off the field, I mean, I felt like Denver was a good opportunity for me to kind of lay the stresses of being an NFL quarterback and just trying to be perfect every day to spending more time with the guys in the locker room and growing that bond. I think is always important, and just enjoying every single day of being there. So I think that's always an important aspect, and then it carries onto the field of you just being more comfortable.
Yeah, Zach Wilson really talking about being a starter, and obviously, I think with the offense that he's being implemented in with Mike McDaniel, obviously Zach Wilson can use his legs. That's what Tua does on a basis with Mike McDaniel. So, I know a lot of people are down on Zach Wilson. I think being with the Broncos organization for a little bit, Sean Payton, like understanding NFL offenses because, you never really trust the Jets. Who the hell knows what he was learning over there, dude? So, yeah,
Didn't play in the game, though.
If the case where Tua does get hurt, unlike other people, I feel like I'd be a little bit more comfortable with Zach Wilson in that spot.
He didn't start a game with the Broncos.
But you still got to learn Sean Payton's playbook, dude.
You learn under that. You see how a rookie operates.
Right.
An experienced rookie who could even be the same age as him because Bo Nix was in college for a long time. So
what was he, 25?
He might be, and I think that might be Zach Wilson's age. Regardless, it's still a good experience.
I still feel like in the Miami Dolphins, no knock against Wilson, but in the Miami Dolphins situation where they needed a solid backup, like that was their big Achilles heel last year, not having a veteran, experienced guy. Why on earth did they bring in a guy who they think they can build up and create into this guy who was, not successful in New York? I don't know. It's one of many topics that I discuss with David Furones, who's all over the Dolphins at every given moment, the Sun Sentinel beat writer. Dave, let's meet me and him a couple of hours ago. We are joined now by Dave Furones, Sun Sentinel Dolphins beat writer, who's all over the Dolphins year-round, 365 days, and you can read his articles, of course, daily on the Sun Sentinel. And Dave, I guess over the past few years, the word that would stand out after free agency, the word was speed. Okay, not so much an emphasis on that this time around. Things kind of went awry with that game plan last year. What's the key word? What's the key element of this free agency?
I would say that the Dolphins have been frugal in their spending. They are not going for the high-priced free agents. They're trying to find the bargains wherever they can. They're deal hunting, if you will, and that's life when you are a little bit strapped for cash. They obviously have a ton of salary cap commitments from all the high-priced players that they brought in over the past off seasons. When you look at Tyreek Hill's contract, Jalen Ramsey, Jalen Waddle getting an extension, Tua Tagovailoa, of course, now the quarterback getting the big quarterback second contract money. All these things start to add up. Bradley Chubb, and you eventually can't pay new free agents all that big money that you were spending to make big splashes in future off seasons. So that's kind of what the Dolphins have had to do. Look for a bargain in a decent guard, a position of need where you found James Daniels, but you got him at a little bit of a cheaper price because he had the Achilles injury last year, and all indications are that he should be fine for training camp ahead of this season as he has rehabbed it. Maybe the next biggest name would be Zach Wilson. Well, probably the bigger name, but just not as big of a splash because he will be a backup quarterback to Tua Tagovailoa. But you find just sort of some smaller roles, guys that can fit some needs. You find your guard. You get maybe a tall wide receiver like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who could fill that role, be a possession receiver next to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You find an Alexander Madison who could be a short yardage running back. Things like that. And Ifeatu Melifonwu as a safety who could maybe play a versatile role in the defense for Anthony Weaver, and just plug and play. And then you still leave yourself with a lot of roster spots that you could fill with the 10 picks that you have in this draft coming up.
So you mentioned the lack of money. So the Dolphins were kind of forced into that lane again of signing a really talented athletic guard in James Daniels, but a guy who he's coming off an injury, and we've kind of seen that before. I mean, there were injury concerns about Tua Tagovailoa right off the top when they drafted him. So how much of a concern should this be? By all accounts, he's a very talented and much needed player on this team. But are you worried about the injury at all? Is this another thing that could blow up in the Dolphins' face?
Yeah, not only talented, but also fits the scheme well because in Pittsburgh they were running a lot of the same outside zone concepts in the run game, run blocking game. So good fit. But yeah, it's still a major injury. And Jalen Phillips was one who was coming off an Achilles injury Black Friday 2023. Now that's deeper into the season. James Daniels was telling us when we spoke to him how he felt actually fortunate, obviously not fortunate that he had the injury, but fortunate that it happened early in the season. So he's had a longer recovery time. And hey, if you go by the Jalen Phillips track, then he still got in during training camp and was healthy at the start of the season. Of course, then 4 games in, he had an unrelated ACL tear, but it wasn't the same leg, partially torn week 4 against the Titans. So unfortunately for Jalen, he suffered another season-ending injury. But there is a track record for someone who had an Achilles tear deeper into a season, coming back and being ready for the season. So James Daniels would be ahead of that, having his injury just 4 weeks into the 2024 season. And all indications, he indicated that he will be ready for training camp. So he's been progressing toward that. And the Dolphins did check the medical records for confirmation of such.
All right. Well, that's good news. No, being strung along like the Bradley Chubb scene last year where we weren't sure if he was going to come back and he ultimately never did. So pure confidence, week 1, Daniels is there for us.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say he's practicing at the start of training camp, so not starting on the PUP. And this is all forecasting, though, so that's just based off what they have heard and his confidence in what he's feeling. You never know. This is barring any setbacks, so hopefully no setbacks for him, and then he'll be on track to practice to start training camp, and then that would lead him on the track toward playing week 1.
Awesome. Are you happy with how the Dolphins addressed their gaping hole at safety? Of course, Javon Holland leaving for the Giants. That's I'm getting that right. Yeah, Giants.
Yes.
Giants. Yeah, it's been weeks, and I guess Poyer has all but retired. Right? Is that official?
Nothing official on Poyer, but he may very well retire. Obviously, the Dolphins signed him last year as he's at the tail end of his career, 1-year deal. So he could opt to try to return again, but obviously late in his career and with his play declining a little bit, then maybe he could go in that direction. But if I'm the Dolphins, then maybe you end up getting better play or at least comparable play at safety at cheaper than you would have had to pay to keep Javon Holland and his $15 million a year to the Giants. So you end up with a versatile player in Afatu Melifonwu at safety who
applause.
Yeah.
You got his name right.
I nailed it, right?
Excellent. Yeah, I think so. I'll ask ChatGPT, and you are the only ones who know how to pronounce his name.
I've been practicing with our Dolphins deep dive with Chris Perkins. I had that one ready to go. So
awesome.
Yeah, he's a guy who can move around in the defense. So as Jalen Ramsey also does in Anthony Weaver's scheme, I think maybe that could be a good complement where he could fill different roles, playing at safety, playing in the box. He could play the nickel cornerback covering the slot. He could play on the boundary because that was his original position as a cornerback before he transitioned to safety. So you get him, you get a ball hawking safety who has been a reserve for most of his career in Ashton Davis, but someone who could maybe create some turnovers on the back end when he's called upon. And you bring back Elijah Campbell, re-signing him on a team-friendly deal, who also contributes majorly on special teams. So maybe you get some competition there, and then you still can bring in a safety in this draft and have him compete with those guys for a starting spot.
All right, so we got to address the elephant in the room. I think all of us kind of just naturally just chuckled a little bit when we saw that the Dolphins had gone with Zach Wilson, former Jets quarterback, who, let's face it, he was kind of a punchline in New York, but we have seen his upside. He's a slinger. Are you surprised, though, that Greer and head coach Mike McDaniel went this route and after everything they went through last year with being caught with their pants down with no legit backup quarterback, that they would go with sort of a risky make work project that comes with all of this baggage, this New York City, punchline baggage, and instead of someone more reliable? And why would they have done that?
Yeah, my top pick would have been Jimmy Garoppolo for many reasons. Just he has a track record of being a starter in the league, and obviously he's no longer one, but that's what you're going to get as a backup quarterback. It's not like you just find starting quarterbacks who are willing to back up someone else. So obviously transitioning in his career to being a backup and then having the scheme familiarity, having come from the San Francisco 49ers when he was a starter, and Mike McDaniel was the offensive coordinator there for a season while also being with him for all the years he was run game coordinator and even reaching a Super Bowl. one time reaching an NFC championship game another season. So some deep playoff runs that the 49ers made behind Jimmy G, then that would have been my perfect fit for Tua's backup as sort of one of the top backup quarterbacks in the league. And whereas Zach Wilson, he's still a project, but maybe one that Mike McDaniel believes he could transform, considering what he did with Tua Tagovailoa once he took him under his wing. We all saw the jump that Tua made going from year 2 to year 3. The way Mike McDaniel instilled some confidence in him as a youngster, and maybe he sees some of the same things that he could in Zach Wilson that he could still pull off. Given that Wilson also has some of those raw tools that you liked when he was a number 2 draft pick out of BYU, the arm talent, and he's also got some mobility. So obviously he's got to work on his accuracy, decision making, maybe some things that Mike McDaniel believes he can fix in Wilson's game. And at the end of the day, you just need him to be a backup quarterback. So you hope if you're the Dolphins that you never even need to see what Zach Wilson can become in Miami, because you just hope Tua remains healthy. But given Tua's track record of not staying healthy and considering that he is injury prone, then you do need a solid backup quarterback. And he wouldn't have been my ideal choice because he is still young and he didn't even play in a regular season game last year. So you don't know what kind of progress he's made, but maybe there is somewhat of a higher ceiling that Mike McDaniel feels he can pull out of Zach Wilson once he takes him in.
It's just so crazy though, because we've seen, how many games did Tua miss last year? I forget.
6.
I think it was a 6. It was a chunk of 6, and that sunk their season just because. So, why would they want to be playing with, we think we can do this, when they could just bring in somebody who, they should. I think Dolphin fans almost look at this as like, okay, if we had to have a QB1 on our team, who is it going to be? Because you never know with Tua, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why Jimmy Garoppolo would have been my top choice for the combination of reasons that he could be reliable, has the track record of performing as a starter when he was one, and familiarity with the system as just a reliable veteran backup that I think if for a team with Super Bowl aspirations, that's who I would rather put my season in the hands of if Tua were to get hurt than a project player, which is what Zach Wilson would still be coming in.
Hopefully we don't have to check the tape and show that David Furones was absolutely right on this one. And if only we had gone with your advice, the 2025 season would not have sunk to the bottom of the ocean.
Well, and things have to go both ways too, because Jimmy Garoppolo obviously has a good backup job with the Rams behind Matthew Stafford, and he went back to it and actually took less money than Zach Wilson got here in Miami. So that's part of it too, is that the other player has to be willing, and maybe he was just happy being in LA and being behind Matthew Stafford, where maybe that's more of a cushy backup job. You don't really have to do much. You just Matthew Stafford's a good quarterback. He stays healthy, and you might even just never have to really go into a game. With the Dolphins, you could end up having a franchise in your hands if you're the backup quarterback there. But that's also opportunity for a quarterback. So there's many ways to look at it.
Yeah, hopefully for Tua's sake and for our sake, we will have a healthy Tua all year. Now, heading into the draft, okay, we always hear Chris Greer say over and over again, it's when it comes time to picking, we got 10 picks, it's always best available, best available, best available. Is this mindset tweaked a little bit considering the circumstances they're in? Like, does it have to shift to, NFL player ready guys? Or maybe that's always what they did.
Yeah. I think you want to draft someone who's able to contribute right away.
At least in the guaranteed that has to be the mindset in the first 2 rounds, right?
Yeah, you want someone who can contribute right away and provide you value, especially in a hot seat season for Chris Greer as general manager, for Coach Mike McDaniel. I think that tandem is on the hot seat going into this season because of the way last year went awry. So, yes, I think in your best player available, you've got to be thinking best player available for 2025 first and foremost, and who also has a somewhat of a ceiling that you could work toward, that you can build upon. So it's It's both, but your best player available has to be able to contribute right away. You're looking for starters. In a hot
I was going to say
season.
starter is the key word now. It used to be speed. Now it's starters. It's
Yeah.
got to happen, right? It's the only option. Are you seeing anyone just sticking out like a sore thumb that could be available to the Dolphins that they should just definitely snap up?
Well, I would love to see the Dolphins go offensive line in the first round. Now, that ultimately comes down to if they feel one of those linemen is their best player available when they do select at 13. So I know Armand Membu out of Missouri, his stock has sort of skyrocketed with the combine that he had. He looked good and very athletic at his size, which is a key component to being able to play in the outside zone scheme. So a guy who could be a tackle in the long run, but maybe start off at guard where he could slide in right away and be exactly what we've been talking about, a starter from the start. So either him or Will Campbell out of LSU or Kelvin Banks out of Texas. All of those would make sense in that same role, a tackle down the line, but maybe begins his career as a guard because that's where there is a fit for a Dolphin starter. And if not, then yeah, they still could bring in a safety. I like Malachi Starks out of Georgia or Nick Emmanwori out of South Carolina, who had a tremendous combine. He's a freak of an athlete back there. And hey, if they go with a cornerback, which is still a premium position, and maybe Chris Greer doesn't go by that offensive line or safety need, and still goes to a position where it is still a need, you could look a cornerback and go Michigan cornerback Will Johnson. And he could be a solid pick at 13.
The NFL season never ends. That's what's so great. And I know your work never ends. Thank you so much for joining us for a few minutes here. And we'll see you on NFL Draft Night down in Miami Gardens. Thank you, David Furones.
All right. Sounds good. We're within a month away from that. So working around the clock.
That's crazy. Love it. We'll see you then.
All right, from the gridiron to the hockey rink. How was that?
That was a Ferris Bueller reference.
It's in my day, it's Travis Scott, but nonetheless.
Yes.
Oh, okay. He sampled that.
Anyways, we'll continue. So
Great
some
transition.
big news developing today. Paul Maurice targeting a Friday against the Utah Hockey Club as the debut for Brad Marchand.
I like it.
Obviously, the Panthers making a huge splash on deadline day, acquiring Marchand from the Bruins. He's been out of the lineup, had an upper body injury against the Penguins about a month ago.
Yep.
And Paul Maurice sounds pretty eager that it's going to be Friday. So
cool.
Vamos got those fans. It'll be finally good to see him put on that Panthers sweater for an in-game action to see, and really for him to start gelling with that team.
Yeah, I am curious to see what type of role he is in terms of how much they rely on him. Of course, first game back, he needs to get his legs under him, so that's, obviously the first game might not be the best way to tell that, but moving forward past that, how is he going to be treated in this team? Is everything going to run through him? Is it going to be something where he's the one dishing out to everybody else? So I am very curious to see how that works.
Yeah, no, it's not all going to run through him, but he will play the role of Brad Marchand, man. That's why he will be the pest kind of like veteran guy who just the offensive punch, the guy who we've seen always. He'll be like a second Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just hopefully him and Sam Reinhart don't fight in a Florida Panthers uniform against each other. But yeah, I think they've made up for all it's water under the bridge, right?
Well, when you come to your new
sucker
teammates,
punch.
you just got to be like, hey man,
I
hated you back then. We're best friends now. Welcome to the team.
Look at us. We're in the same podcast together.
I punched you once.
But that's good news. And the Panthers are coming off. I mean, they've looked great. They're coming off a week off, right?
4 days. Yep.
They
A
had
rare
that-
4-day break, like in the middle of this. Near the home stretch of the season,
Right.
very rare. So they're getting a little bit rested. And I think with Marchand too coming in the lineup, I think it'll provide that added juice. Because again, like when you play a lot of hockey, dude, you start to wear down. And granted, like it hasn't happened yet for the Panthers, but I think like when you throw the addition of a new teammate, especially when it's Marchand, like I think that'll give him an extra boost heading into the Stanley Cup.
Just the playoff experience that guy has had, just unbelievable being able to add him into this already Stanley Cup favorite team. all the experience that they have. And then we don't even get Matthew Tkachuk back again until the playoffs either. So that'll be another thing to look forward to. Just crazy the way things are all coming together here for the Florida Panthers to enjoy a back-to-back Stanley Cup experience.
Yeah, and another return to South Florida that isn't really as exciting for South Florida fans, but it was still very interesting to see Jimmy Butler back in the Miami Heat arena. I mean, that was
something.
The end result was exciting.
I knew it was
South
going
Florida
to be mixed.
fans.
I knew it was going to be mixed coming in. Of course, they did a tribute video for Jimmy Butler after he was traded.
See, I was at TGL.
suspended.
Did he look up? What was his reaction watching that? Did anyone see that?
He said he really had no emotion to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely passed. I still think there's.
I think the crazy thing too is like the interviews prior to him coming down. He's like, oh, I can't bear the reason for all this. Like, are you sure, dude? Because I believe every article that I've ever read is like, oh, Jimmy Butler like not wanting to do this, like being late to the team playing or whatever.
Yeah.
So
He said they just didn't want me near the team, and that's why they kept doing that.
whatever
They
the
kept
hell
looking for
that means.
excuses.
Whatever the
Yeah,
hell that
yeah.
means.
Well, how are you going to be near a team if you're suspended, not playing? You shouldn't be near them.
How about you go find your plane?
Yeah.
He literally said, "I'm not happy here anymore." So
Yeah.
he got his way. And actually, it was great. You know, he came back and he played like he always plays in Miami, like garbage. He was
Wow.
Again,
Wow.
No, I didn't mean. Okay, let me rephrase that, bro.
No, you said it.
No.
You said he's trash.
No, let me rephrase that.
We should-
let me rephrase that.
I wish I could go get this
Say it.
trash can
Leading
over here
up
and
to the
bring it up.
trade. Obviously, he
Oh,
has
okay.
been.
I see.
He is one of the the great memories for Miami Dolphin fans with the runs
Miami
that they
Heat?
went on.
Miami Heat?
Miami Heat fans with the runs they went on in those back-to-back years. But what I meant to say was leading up to when he had checked out.
Yes.
When he was not happy anymore, he didn't play with any passion. He was just running up and down the court, and it's kind of like that was the game that we saw last night. 11 points, I think, 6 rebounds.
Yeah,
2
11
assists.
points, 5 of 12 shooting.
Those were
yeah.
similar numbers to what we were seeing before he got traded.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't isolate. I did not mean that he
Heat fans be
played
appreciative
like
of
trash.
Jimmy Buckets for everything he brought, but it's time to move on.
But that's a good point. Like what I just said, it's like the way he left. It's easy to just spew stuff about him like that, right? And that should not be the case for one of the greatest.
No, he definitely
players as far-
helped revive this franchise after the big three left and kept them relevant for quite a long time.
But think about how easily I just badmouthed them there.
No, for sure.
And he's a legend. He is a Heat legend, but like he just everything that happened leading up to that trade is just.
he did it to himself. He did it to himself.
In a lot of
and-
ways he
and-
did,
And
yeah.
Pat Riley definitely played a part in that too, not in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are you going to do? The Heat end up winning 112-86. First time winning consecutive games since February 26th.
And they held a damn lead. Let's
go.
go.
Oh my gosh, they held the lead.
Every Heat game, I go on that app when they're up by 20. And
They
I
could be
just-
up by 60.
I
and
put
like,
it all
well,
on the other.
Yeah,
on
of
the other
course.
team.
They won a 10-game losing streak.
That's
so-
how we afforded this set.
Yeah, great. So we are taping this on
Touche.
Wednesday. As of today, Wednesday, they are 10th in the East and 6 games in front of Toronto, who is 11th right now.
Don't
So-
badmouth the Raptors, man.
Well, it's more bad-mouthing Miami Heat. They're 10.
Drake's
So
team.
let's move on to some picks. Swinging all the way back to the beginning, March Madness. I've got games for you.
I nailed them last week, man. Remember, I was into Creighton. I said the Blue Jays.
Yes.
And no,
he only
no,
picked it because of the Toronto.
I knew you were going to say that.
Let's
Yeah,
start
yeah.
off with the first game that we talked about, Gators, Maryland.
Oh.
Who we got?
You want to go first, Johnny? Or
Gators, Maryland. Well, of course I've got the Gators, man. I mean, Maryland's gonna be tough because they're good defenders. The Gators can't turn over the ball. Maryland will take full advantage of that. The Terps are really good, but the Gators are better. Gators win.
I like Florida.
I've also got the Gators winning this one. All right, next one we've got 6-seeded BYU against 2-seeded Alabama right here on CBS 12 News.
I got Bama. My Elite Eight, by the way, is intact. Like, I may not be in first place. Vetus somehow are
He's got like 108 points.
108 points. Like,
Yeah,
Vetus
way to
Reed.
forget the title of our.
I know,
our
Storm Track Chief Meteorologist.
Oh,
Vetus
sorry,
Reed.
I didn't say his title right.
It's all right. You
I'm
just
going
did-
upset here. I'm going BYU. Let's get it.
All right,
Whoa, BYU. Interesting.
let's do some side bets.
I've got Alabama. All right, next one we've got 4-seeded Arizona against number 1 Duke.
I got Duke in my championship game.
So you've got them in this one.
Yes, I think that they're Duke, dude.
They're
Duke. They're Duke, and they're big,
I can't
and
confirm.
they're strong, and yes, you can confirm that they're the
They
Blue
are
Devils.
Duke.
Yep.
Yes.
I like Duke, but there's something about a Coach Cal team in the Sweet 16 that wouldn't surprise me if it was an upset. I know as cliche as that is to say, I just feel like Coach Cal has a new revived urgency in college basketball. I think I saw some stat where he's got 2 NCAA tournament wins this year, and I think the last 3 years at Kentucky only had 1 or some stat like that. So I like Duke, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think.
Okay. Next one we've got 6-seeded Ole Miss against 2-seeded Michigan State. Also on CBS 12 News.
I'm going with Michigan State because I'll go into that later.
Okay. I've also got Michigan State winning this one.
Yeah, Michigan State, no doubt, man.
All right.
Just the veteran coach, the whole thing.
Next one. The lowest seed in this entire thing. 10-seeded Arkansas against 3-seeded Texas Tech. I think I'll start off with this one. I think this is where their match is finally met, Arkansas. I think it ends here, and I think Texas Tech wins it.
I had Texas Tech originally beating St.
St.
John's. So I thought that they would knock out St. John's, but St. John's sort of imploded themselves. So
Yes.
I have Texas Tech moving on.
All right.
I like Texas Tech.
Okay. Next one. Coach Cal's former team, Kentucky, 3-seed against 2-seed Tennessee.
What do you guys think?
Let's go Wildcats.
Yeah, I've
Let's go
I've
Wildcats.
also got the mini upset in the Wildcats winning this one.
Tennessee. Let's go with Tennessee. I had
He's
Tennessee.
just hammering out the favorites. dude.
Tennessee
He's
knocking
boring.
out.
Yeah.
Well,
You're as boring as the tournament.
that's because that's the way college basketball is now, man. The more talent, the better chance you have to win.
There you
There's
go.
no sneaky deaky anymore. Just
All right.
little mini sneaky deakies. Like
Former
Big Beast.
FAU head coach Dusty May and the Michigan Wolverines taking on 1-seeded Auburn.
We have witnessed how great a coach Dusty May is. I think Vlad has really stepped it up and made big strides this year, and I think we're going to see some good things from Michigan.
I picked Michigan because who the hell wouldn't want a Michigan State Elite Eight?
Fully
Are you
agree.
kidding me?
That's
Yeah.
also.
Are you kidding me?
That's
Dude,
why
I have-
I picked it.
I have
I've got
cousins
Michigan as
who
well.
went to both schools, and I'm going over to their house.
Oh,
if this
yeah.
thing goes down.
Last one we've got for you: 4-seeded Purdue against 1-seeded Houston. I think it's without question. I've got Houston.
Houston,
Yeah, I
we do
like
not
Houston.
have a problem. Yeah, Houston.
Oh,
Yeah.
all
Houston's
right.
in my Final Four, so let's
Also,
go.
did I say Coach Cal was coaching against Duke?
Yeah, that kind of confused me. I knew you were going to swing back to it when we were all
Damn,
done.
sorry, my bad, fans.
That's all
my
right.
bad. All right.
You might be predicting something in the future that could happen. Then.
Coach Cal's leaving Arkansas.
Maybe.
No, we're not
You
putting
heard
that
it
out.
here first.
We're gonna have the answer to that next week, along with
If this happens.
If our picks
If
stick.
Arkansas eventually plays Duke, yes, I'm going to pick Arkansas.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for tuning in. Action-packed episode. Next week, we're going to have this and much more.
Do
Thank you
think
for watching.
Max looks like the Buc-ee's guy right there. A little bit.
Yeah, a little chubby, little beaver. Yeah,
We'll move
absolutely.
right
dude.
behind you next week, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Best Florida Sports Podcast drops every Thursday morning. Listen on your favorite platform or watch on YouTube.